This is something I've never told anyone outside our group, not because it's unbelievable, because none of us want to remember it clearly. It was late September. I was 19 and between semesters. My parents had just finalized their divorce that summer, and I was looking for any reason to not be home. My friend Cal's uncle worked as a park ranger at Fort Morrow on the coast. The park had these old concrete bunkers, military batteries from the Second World War, tunnels and rooms cut straight into the hillside, sealed off to the public after dark. Cal had the gate code. His uncle gave it to him months ago. Cal was that kind of person, always had access to things other people didn't. There were 5 of us, me and Cal, his girlfriend Tony, and 2 of Cal's roommates. I'll call them Wyatt and Jude. We got there just after 9:30. The parking lot was completely empty. The ocean was loud and close, salt air coming in thick off the water, and the bunkers sat at the top of the hill, like a row of open mouths cut into the earth. There was no moon that night, just cloud cover and a lighthouse in the distance, sweeping the water every few seconds. Cal punched in the code at the gate. It clicked open, and we walked up the gravel path in single file, flashlights on our phones, wind coming in hard from the west. The first few bunkers were what you'd expect: cold concrete rooms, graffiti on the walls, beer cans and broken glass. It felt more sad than scary. Tony kept grabbing Cal's arm, half laughing and half frightened. She kept saying this was a bad idea. Wyatt was filming everything on his phone. Jude was quiet. He was always quiet. We were about 4 bunkers deep, moving along a corridor that connected them underground, when I noticed something on the 3rd door. Every entrance had a padlock, old and rusted, some of them hanging open, forgotten, but this one was different. New, bright steel, still had the manufacturer sticker on the base. I pointed it out to Cal. He shrugged and said the Rangers probably replaced it. That made enough sense at the time, so I let it go. We kept moving deeper into the complex. The corridor narrowed, the ceiling got lower, water stains ran down the walls in dark streaks, and the graffiti disappeared. Like whoever had been tagging the walls didn't want to come this far in, even in daylight. That's when something changed. Underground concrete should be cold, even in September, but the deeper we walked, the warmer it got. Not warm like sunlight, warm like breath, like the air had been lived in. Jude stopped walking. He said it smelled different too, sour, like old food and sweat. I didn't want to think about what that meant, but my chest was already tightening. We came around a corner into a wider room, and Wyatt's flashlight swept across the floor. An energy bar wrapper, torn open, recent. Beside it, a plastic water bottle, half empty, no dust on the cap. Cal picked it up and turned it in his hand. Nobody said anything for a few seconds. Tony took a step back toward the corridor. Then she whispered that we should leave. Before anyone could answer, a sound echoed from deeper in the tunnel, metal on metal, like a heavy door being pulled shut, hard enough to feel the vibration in the floor. We all froze. Wyatt killed his flashlight instinctively, which made it worse. For about 3 seconds we stood in total darkness. Every sound amplified. Our own breathing, the drip of water somewhere behind us. And then nothing. No footsteps. No voice. Just the low hum of wind pushing through concrete. Carl turned his light back on. His face was different now. Tony grabbed his wrist and said we needed to go. But Cal shook his head and said we should check one more room. I still don't know why any of us agreed. I think we were too scared to split up. The next room was smaller, set off from the main corridor, behind a door that was already open. And it wasn't empty. Against the far wall, a sleeping bag, rolled out flat on the concrete. Next to it, 2-gallon jugs of water, a pile of folded clothes, a camp stove with a bent burner, and newspaper pages taped to the wall. Dozens of them, some with sections circled in red marker. Headlines about missing persons, local shelters, bus schedules. Someone was living down here, not passing through, living. Cal took a step back. His foot hit one of the water jugs, and it didn't move. Full. Someone had carried fresh water down here recently, within the last day or 2. I kneeled next to the sleeping bag and touched the fabric without thinking. It was warm, not old warm, body warm. I pulled my hand back and said one word: go. We didn't walk, we ran. Back through the corridor, past the room with the wrapper, past the door with the new padlock, up the gravel path to the lot, shoes slipping on wet stone. Wyatt dropped his phone and didn't stop to pick it up. Cal started the engine before all the doors were shut. We pulled out so fast the tires kicked gravel against the undercarriage like gunshots. Nobody talked for the first 10 minutes of the drive. Not one word. Just the sound of the heater, and all 5 of us trying to breathe normally. Tony was crying quietly in the back seat. Jude had his hand over his mouth, like he was keeping something in. Then Wyatt broke the silence. He'd picked up his phone after all, and he'd been scrolling through the footage. He stopped on a single frame, a wide-angle shot of the corridor, taken while we were walking away from that room, and in the doorway we had just passed through, half hidden at the edge of the light. A shape, a person, standing still, facing the camera. None of us had seen it. None of us had heard a single step. He was right behind us. And not one of us knew. My mum is the kind of person who stays calm, even when she probably shouldn't. I've seen her handle flat tires on back roads, arguments with strangers in parking lots, a phone call about my grandmother's fall, all with the same steady voice and the same steady hands. I was 16 when I finally understood that her version of scared looks exactly like her version of calm, and that's what makes it worse. It was a Thursday night in November. We were driving back from a campus tour, about 3 hours from home, just the 2 of us, which was how most things were by then. My dad passed away 2 years before that trip, and since then everything was just me and her. Grocery runs, parent-teacher nights, holiday dinners at a half-empty table. She never complained about it, not once. We'd been on the highway for about 90 minutes. When she said she needed to stop, her eyes were heavy, and the road had no streetlights, just the yellow center line pulling us forward. The rest area came up on the right, a small concrete building with bathrooms, vending machines along the wall, a covered walkway, and a mostly empty lot, the kind of place that looks fine during the day, but feels completely different after dark. There was one other vehicle, a dark minivan parked near the building, engine running, headlights off, no one inside. I noticed that, engine running but nobody in it. I looked at it for a few seconds, and told myself it didn't matter. We parked about 3 spots away. My mum stayed in the car to check her phone. I told her I'd be right back, and walked to the bathroom. The fluorescent lights inside were bad. One of them kept flickering, not fast like a strobe, slow, like it was deciding whether to stay on. The buzzing changed pitch every few seconds, high then low. It made everything feel slightly wrong. Even the mirror looked off, like the color of my skin wasn't quite right. I was in there for maybe 2 minutes, washed my hands, dried them on my jeans, and walked back out into the lot. The car had moved. My mum had pulled it away from the building, to the far edge of the lot, near the highway exit ramp, engine running, headlights on. She was behind the wheel, both hands gripping it at 10 and 2, the way she holds it when the roads are icy. She waved me over, calm, not smiling, not panicked, just still. I walked to the passenger side, opened the door.
Got in.
She locked the doors immediately, all 4 at once. The click was loud in the silence. Before I could ask what happened, she was already pulling out of the lot. She turned onto the highway without stopping, and drove at exactly the speed limit, which she only does when she's thinking very hard about something she doesn't want to say. I asked her what happened. She didn't answer right away. She adjusted the mirror, checked it twice, then spoke without looking at me. Her voice flat and steady, like she was reading directions off a map. While you were inside, a man got out from under that van. She paused for a moment. He stood up slowly, looked toward the bathroom entrance, and started walking. He walked to the door, and stood in the doorway for about 10 seconds, not moving, just standing there, like he was listening. Then he turned around, walked back to the van, got on the ground, and crawled underneath it again. I felt my whole body go cold at once. She said he was wearing dark clothes, a hat pulled low, that he moved slowly, like he was in no rush at all, like this was something he had done before, maybe many times. She didn't honk, didn't yell, didn't flash the headlights. She just started the car, moved it to where she could see the exit, kept the engine running, and waited for me to come out. That's the part that still gets me. She didn't come get me, because if she had walked to the bathroom, He would have known she'd seen him, and she didn't know what he'd do. So she moved the car, turned on the lights, and waited. We stopped at the next town with lights. She pulled into a gas station, left the engine running, and called the state police from the parking lot. She gave them the mile marker, described the van, the color, the make, even the angle it was parked at. Details I didn't notice she'd been collecting. While I was inside washing my hands, they sent a unit to the rest area. Nobody was there. The van was gone. No tire marks. No evidence anyone had been there at all. On the drive home, she didn't say much. She kept both hands on the wheel and checked the mirrors more than usual. Every few seconds, even on straight empty road. I asked her once a few months later what the man's face looked like. When he crawled out from under that van, she just shook her head and changed the subject. That was the only time in my life I ever saw my mom choose not to answer, and that's how I know what she saw was worse than what she told me. I moved into the apartment in early March. It was a studio on the second floor of a converted house on the east side of town. I was 24. New job, new city. I didn't know a single person within 200 miles. The rent was low enough that I didn't ask why. The landlord was an older man named Phil. He showed me the unit in about 5 minutes. It smelled like fresh paint and cleaning product. He pointed at the radiator, the stove, the one window facing the street, handed me a single key, and mentioned the previous tenant had left suddenly. Didn't even pick up his deposit. His name was K. Voss. That was all Phil said about him, and I didn't think to ask more. I had the key. The rent was paid. That was enough. The first night I noticed the closet door was open. Not all the way, just a few inches. A dark gap running floor to ceiling. I was sure I'd shut it when I unpacked. But I was tired from the move, so I closed it and went to bed. K. Voss's mail kept showing up. Envelopes slid under my door every few days. Credit card offers, insurance notices, a dental reminder with his name printed on the front. I stacked them on the kitchen counter. A small pile that grew every week. Phil said he'd take care of it eventually. He never did. The second morning, the closet door was open again. Same gap, same angle, like it had been measured. I shut it harder this time and pressed a shoe against the base. That evening I sat on the couch for a while, just looking at the closet, trying to talk myself out of what I was feeling. The building was old. The floors weren't level. Doors drift in old houses. That's all it was. The third night I woke up just after 2. Not from a sound, from a smell. Something stale and heavy, like old sweat sealed in a closed room. It hung in the air for maybe 10 seconds. Then it was gone. I got up and checked every part of the apartment. Windows shut. Front door locked. Chain still on. Closet door closed. Shoe still in place. I went back to bed and didn't sleep. The next evening I left a glass of water out, filled it to the top, and left it on the counter. In the morning it was half empty. I stood in front of it for a long time, trying to remember if I'd gotten up in the night. I hadn't. That was the first time I felt actually afraid. Not uneasy, afraid. I started paying attention to small things. The position of my shoes by the door, whether the towel was exactly where I'd left it, the angle of the closet door every morning. I even started taking photos before bed of the kitchen counter, the bathroom floor, the closet. Every morning something was slightly different. Never enough to be sure, always enough to notice. 2 nights later I heard it, a sound coming from inside the closet wall. Soft, rhythmic, breathing, not pipes, not the building settling. Someone was breathing behind the wall. I called Phil the next morning. He said the hot water pipes ran through that wall. Old house. They expand and contract. They make sounds. I wanted to believe that. So I did, for 2 more days. That weekend I pushed my dresser against the closet. Flat against the door. It was solid oak, heavy enough that nothing short of a person could move it. I checked the gap, pulled on the dresser to make sure it was flush. It didn't budge. I slept better that night than I had all week. In the morning, the dresser was 6 inches from the wall. I stood in the middle of my apartment. It felt like the air had left my body. Not shock, not panic, just the complete understanding that I was not alone in that unit. And I probably never had been. I didn't touch the dresser, didn't try to explain it. I picked up my phone and called the police. 2 officers came within 20 minutes. One stayed with me in the kitchen. The other went to the closet. He moved the dresser, opened the door, pushed aside the hanging clothes, and found a seam in the back wall, a panel cut into the drywall, just wide enough for a person to fit through. He drew his flashlight, looked at his partner, and went in. He was in there for maybe 90 seconds. It felt longer than anything I've ever waited for. I could hear his boots on something hollow, like plywood over joists. When he came back out, his face had changed. He was holding a phone, not mine. He turned the screen toward me. Photos of me, sleeping, time-stamped from my first night in the apartment. There were more. Me at the kitchen counter, sitting on the couch with my headphones on. Me standing at the window with my back turned. All taken from inside the closet, through that gap in the door. The gap I kept closing, and someone kept opening. The space behind the wall had a mattress pad, flattened down to almost nothing. Food wrappers, a jug of water, and a small battery-powered fan, still plugged into an extension cord, that ran up through the ceiling. The officer told me the pad was compressed, stained in the shape of a body. Whoever had been in there had spent a lot of time lying down, waiting. They never found K. Voss. Phil said he moved out 3 months before I arrived, claimed he barely knew the guy, said he paid in cash, kept to himself, never had guests, never made noise, but the mail kept coming, week after week, because K. Voss never changed his address. He never filed a forwarding form. He never told the post office he'd left. The photos on that phone started the night I moved in, but the mattress pad behind that wall was pressed flat from months of wait. K. Voss didn't move out. The mail kept coming, because K. Voss never left.